Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 17th monthly Board of Trustees meeting. The time is 7 o'clock. I hereby call this meeting to order, and I would ask the clerk to take the roll call.
Mayor Citron,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Lindsay,
Present.
Trustee Brooke,
Present.
Trustee Shara,
Present via Zoom.
Trustee Shaw.
I'd ask everybody in the room to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Again, good evening, everyone. At this point, I make my mayor's comments, and I have some updates for the village that are not going to be addressed tonight at the board meeting. First of all, I'd like to let everybody know that the clerk treasurer and I visited with the Board of Elections commissioners up in Goshen last week, and the election is on schedule. It is scheduled for June 18th. It will be run by the Board of Elections. We went over some of the details. There will be 2 trustee seats that will be up for election this year. And the only issue that we have to decide as a board, in case I should forget, is we have to select the hours that we wish the polls to be open. So hopefully we can reach that determination today, and then I can relay that to the commissioners so they'll know when they want, they'll have their people down here. And some news with regard to cell service. Verizon Wireless actually reached out to me unsolicited. They're very interested in improving cell service in the village, and on Friday they will be doing a site evaluation. They'll be bringing a whole crew in. They'll be using a drone to survey the sites. If they choose to put in either a small tower or tree, they would call it, if we agree, of course, as well as mini cells to cover those areas that would not be covered by a smaller tree. They will absorb all the cost. There will be no cost to the village for the improvement of service. So it remains to be seen what their proposal would be. But at this point, they will be here on Friday. I will be here. John will meet with them. We will give them access to the village property they need to survey. And then they'll come back with a proposal, which we will, of course, share with all the residents. You all remember the earthquake. While it didn't seem like much, unfortunately, it caused some damage to the Pond 3 dam. It sprung a small leak. The Pond 3 dam separates Pond 3 from the Weewa, and our DPW superintendent, Jeff Voss, noticed that leak immediately after the earthquake. I advised John to put in a claim with our insurance company, Travelers. John has also gotten in touch with the engineer that is responsible for.
I actually met with the representative from Travelers today and showed him pictures.
Okay, great. Right, that's moving along. Obviously, we're looking for coverage for any repair of the dam that has to be made. They'll make the determination, and we'll move forward. Whether they agree to pay the claim or disclaim, we'll see. But we're moving forward with the insurance claim, and our own engineer is going to evaluate the stability of the dam. We, as you know, are considering and have signed an RFP, a memorandum of understanding for community choice aggregation. As I explained in my last mayor's message, what we're trying to do is offer the community the opportunity as individual homeowners and residents to obtain their electricity through renewable energy. That means that with respect to the village, you would have an option. You will continue under all circumstances to receive your power, your electrical power, through O&R. However, the source of that power would be renewable energy. And there are several options that are available to the village. This afternoon, the deputy mayor and I had a conference call with Joule Energy, which is the aggregator for Orange County. We're going to have another conference call with them on Friday during which time we hope that the suppliers of renewable energy will give us specific pricing that we can then choose and then provide that opportunity to the residents to accept renewable energy in lieu of conventional energy. And as I said in my mayor's message, every resident will have the opportunity on multiple occasions to opt out if they choose not to sign on to the renewable energy program. Finally, tomorrow night is the budget hearing. I personally want to thank the deputy mayor and trustee Shaw that they've been working very hard for weeks on the budget, and the budget is prepared. It was published on the website for those of you that wish to see it. It is at the bottom of the screen below the Zoom instructions. I got some emails from people who couldn't find them. The hearing is scheduled for 6 p.m. tomorrow. I invite everyone to attend and put whatever questions they want to the board with respect to our proposed budget for 24, 25, and hopefully we will pass it. As I announced in my mayor's message, we are not proposing any tax increase for the upcoming fiscal year. And with that being said, I'll take a seat and we will continue with the agenda. In my role as mayor, sometimes I change the agenda, and while ordinarily public comments from members of the public who are either here or on Zoom would be first, I've opted to allow the trustees to speak first, and I'll turn to Trustee Scherer as the first trustee if he has any comments to make before we move to the public comment.
Great. Thanks, Mayor. There is actually a comment I would like to make. It's really a request to all of the village residents that care about the running of the local government. So I've been a trustee now in 2 administrations. I worked obviously with Mayor Mack. I've been working with Mayor Citron. I actually find them both very effective in their own ways. But what I've noticed throughout, and I noticed this obviously when Mayor McFadden was in office, is that the mayor was assumed and accused of nefarious acts, backroom dealing, middle of the night decisions. None of that happened. And I've never seen any evidence of it. Similarly, with this administration, I've seen similar accusations. I've seen it in a few emails that we as a board received today, where there's an underlying assumption that something bad is happening, that someone is acting, actually, in one case, illegally, or just generally pursuing their own interests over their fiduciary duties. And again, I'm very comfortable saying I haven't seen any evidence of that in either administration or with any of the trustees. And I will tell you, I've been impressed over the last, since I've been a trustee, by the level of care and duty that each individual has had with respect to their fiduciary duties. So I would request, this is a request to everyone that is listening to this or listens to the recording, that when you send in an email, your voice will be heard. Your voice needs to be heard. It should be heard. Please don't assume that people are acting in bad faith or not acting in their fiduciary duties. I've never seen any evidence of it. And unless people are exceptionally good at hiding it, it's just not happening. So I think, you know, we've had a very divided community over the last couple of years. It's very unfortunate. I would ask that everyone tone it down a little bit and assume that people are acting in good faith. We may have different objectives, okay? And we will disagree, but don't assume the worst in individuals. So that's a request, and apologies, Mayor, for getting on the pedestal, but I felt that it needed to be said.
Thank you, trustee Shara. Now I'll turn to the deputy
Here.
mayor.
Sorry.
I'll turn to the deputy mayor.
But I'm sorry, by the way, the fact that Elizabeth clapped should be evidence to everyone because she's seen it all. She knows all of the individuals. She's been in the trenches. Okay. She clearly agrees.
They all work, everybody works very hard. They put so much into this job. I put that in quotes because they don't get paid for it. But they put so much into it, and to be criticized liberally is totally unfair.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Again, deputy mayor, do you have any comments you'd like to make on any subject?
Well, I thank trustee Scherer for his comments. I mean, I would say that that certainly has been my observation as well. As far as other things to report, the Climate Smart Committee is busy planning a community campaign to promote community solar, electric vehicles, and clean energy heating and cooling. There's a webinar on May 1st. Elizabeth will have all the information put on the website, and that's at 5:30. And then May 11th, the Tuxedo Climate Smart Committee and the one here in the village are working together for an in-person presentation of these vendors at the Tuxedo train station from 9:30 till noon on May 11th. So there'll be more information forthcoming, and please all come. Hamlet revitalization, I believe I announced at the last meeting that the contract was awarded to Creighton Manning engineering firm for the planning of the Hamlet revitalization between East Village Road and Contractor Road. And they are busy working on their first round of drawings and ideas. We met with them, walked the whole hamlet, and told them what we have found is doable according to the DOT, the MTA, and all the other agencies we need to deal with. We expect the first workshop for public input to take place in mid-May sometime. So as soon as we know the exact date, we will send out that information. Then there'll be a second round after public input is taken into consideration, drawings are revised, and then the second plan will be used to apply for New York Forward grants. It's a $4.5 million grant that we're going for, and as well as other grants. That's my update.
Thank you, deputy mayor. Trustee Shaw,
No comments.
trustee Brooke?
No comment.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the reports and the report from, oh, I'm sorry, public comment. Yes. Public comment. We'll start with anyone in the room who wishes to comment. Would you please raise your hand? Remember, it's 3 minutes on any subject you believe is relevant to the village. No limits on the subject matter. Sir, please stand up and give us your name, your professional or business address, and then feel free to make your comment.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the board. My name is Michael Sheridan. I'm an attorney with Snyder & Snyder, 94 White Plains Road, Tarrytown, New York. We are the attorneys for one of the residents of the village of Tuxedo Park, Sophia Deliner, 66 Summit Road. And we're here tonight in connection with the proposed adoption or review discussion, I guess, of Chapter 49 regarding fences to the village code. Ms. Deliner opposes the proposed adoption of Chapter 49 and any moratorium associated with any review of that adoption. Ms. Deliner would be uniquely injured by the adoption of Chapter 49. Deliner, as well as any other citizen of the village of Tuxedo Park, must be able to reasonably rely on what is written in the code. when determining how and if to proceed with projects on their property. Ms. Delaner relied on the current village code before proceeding with her project to put a fence on her property. She relied on the fact that the village code provides that chapter 49 has sunset and is no longer applicable in connection with fences in the village of Tuxedo Park. To the extent that this board does consider review and adoption of chapter 49, it's requested that any application made prior to such adoption, such as Ms. Delaner's, be grandfathered in and allowed to proceed under the current village code. And also that any applications filed prior to this meeting, such as Ms. Delaner's, should not be subjected to any moratorium. Because again, she relied on the code as it exists and put considerable time and resources into this, including going to the BAR, the BZA, for several meetings, and unfortunately, a few meetings needed to be canceled or were put off, such that Ms. Delaner does not currently have BAR approval, but we're hoping to get that shortly so she can proceed with the project. Just want to also mention that it appears that this board's review of chapter 49 is a direct result of the efforts of a neighbor, Mr. Guazzoni, former member of this board, I understand, and his attorney, Mr. Sarcone, who's also here, I'm sure will be speaking later, to prevent Ms. Delaner from installing her proposed fence. In addition to opposing the installation of the fence, some backstory, Mr. Guazzoni is currently suing Ms. Delaner to take some of her property away, some of that property which would be blocked by this proposed fence.
3 minutes, sir. I appreciate your comments. And the,
Later motivations, yeah, would ask that, again, if you do consider adopting it, that Ms. Delaner's application be grandfathered in. Thank you.
okay, I have one response, only one response, and that is there will be no moratorium imposed tonight. In consultation with Village Council, I've been advised that there's actually a process that requires approval by the Orange County Planning Department. So we would have had to have a moratorium resolution drafted, submitted to Orange County, have them review it before, in fact, we could vote on the 90-day or any period of moratorium. So I can tell you that we will discuss it, but we will not enact a moratorium because we simply have not prepared the administrative procedures that are necessary to vote on it.
Thank you, Billy.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I just have the name of that speaker? I missed it. My connection wasn't good.
Sure. Michael Sheridan of Snyder and Snyder.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Sarcone?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm speaking loud because I'm told that it's hard to hear out there. But first, let me say that.
Please state your name and business address.
Yes, it's John Sarcone. Address is 2 Westchester Park Drive, White Plains, New York, Suite 110. And I'm here on behalf of Blue Summit Holdings, who submitted a letter, or I submitted a letter on their behalf, and I think all the trustees should have received it by now and hopefully had an opportunity to review it. There are several points that are raised, and the first one is certainly a threshold question, is to whether or not this law has actually sunsetted. I believe it has not, and I'm pretty sure that once your council has done the requisite research on this, they may come back with the same conclusion. If they do, then there is no need to readopt anything. And at this point, nothing could be grandfathered because we're not clear whether the law is in existence or not. So having said that, I wanted to turn to another disturbing piece of this, and it's unfortunate that I have to bring this up, Trustee Shaw, but it has been revealed to my client that you had engaged in inappropriate communications with Mr. what's his name up there? Ryan, the chairman from the BAR. Last night, there was a 2 nights ago, there was a meeting. You suddenly appeared at some point in the meeting, and you had never appeared in a meeting before, from what I'm told, at a BAR meeting. Text messages, we believe we're going back and forth, and then it was also revealed that you have a property, a vacant piece of property that has a fence on it. I put a FOIL request in. I haven't received the information back, but it's upon information and belief that that fence is put there without proper approvals, and it is a perimeter fence. So any deliberation on this topic by you, you should recuse yourself. And if you don't have to, but you should, because if all of this is correct, and we're gonna find out, then that's gonna be a problem. So I wanted to throw that out there. And finally, considering the historic nature of this rich history that you have here, we submitted deeds dating back over 150 years, where clearly the intent of the founders was they don't want perimeter fences. And when I drive down here and I'm driving 15 miles an hour, I know that's not the speed limit, but I like driving slower because I enjoy the beauty of this place. And I don't see any perimeter fences anywhere around here. So I believe that the law is still in effect. I believe that the founders didn't want them, and that's why the law was originally put into place. And I firmly believe this board should deliberate on the issue of whether
3 minutes, sir.
Trustee Shaw should recuse herself. Thank you, Mr.
All right. Trustee Shaw, I'll give you the opportunity if you want to respond, but you certainly don't have to.
Not a chance.
Okay. Fine. So anybody else in the room wish to speak on the public comment period? Okay. We have several hands are raised. We'll start with Chien Hempel. Would you unmute her, please, John?
Thank you, Mayor. Chien Hempel, 14 Butternut Road. Do you want me to talk about now the Arbor Day, Earth Day tree planting ceremony, or shall I talk about it later when you consider the Arbor Day proclamation and the Monarch Pledge?
Well, the odds are that the Arbor Day proclamation and the Monarch Pledge will both be approved. They're certainly not controversial, so I'll
Okay,
leave
great.
discuss whatever it is you choose to talk about for the 3 minutes you have now, and 3 minutes at the end of the meeting if you want to stick around for that.
Okay, and I'll just say, I'll just talk now. I'd just like to remind everyone that next Monday, April 22nd, from 1 to 2 p.m., we'll be celebrating Arbor Day and Earth Day by planting 4 native trees between Route 17 and the entrance to Tuxedo Park to replace the 4 dead trees there. This is not only to beautify the gateway to Tuxedo Park, but also to benefit the environment. I'm very happy to report that 25 or so school children from the town's George Grant Mason Elementary School and their teachers will help us do the planting. The town DPW has or will help us remove the dead trees, and all residents in the village as well as the town have been invited to this event, and refreshments will be provided by courtesy of Barbara and Peter Reckner. The town supervisor, Dave McMillan, and council members Rick Marsh, Chris Kaska, and likely Deirdre Murphy will attend together with the town clerk and the head of their DPW. The Tuxedo Park Fire Department is sending a truck and firemen to help us water the new trees, and the ambulance corps will be there to join the celebrations, and just in case. I'd like to note that this is the first time ever that the village and the town have joined forces to officially celebrate a worthy environmental cause. I know that Mayor Citron and Deputy Mayor Lindsay, you're attending, and I hope that the other 3 trustees will be able to do so as well. It would be lovely. And I'm also, to finish, I'm very proud to report that the Village Tree Advisory Board is helping the town to apply to become a member of Tree City USA. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hempel. Next up, Mr. Lynch, you have your hand raised. Would you unmute, Mr. Lynch?
Yes, thank you. Regarding the comments made about text between myself and Trustee Shaw, I welcome anyone who would like to review the video of last night's bar meeting. My phone didn't leave my pocket, and I'm happy to submit my phone records from that period if anyone's curious. Moving on, I'd like to read into the record a letter I've shared with the trustees and read at Monday's bar meeting. Fellow residents, the mayor has made a second attempt to remove me as bar chairman. He has falsified documents to show my 5-year term ending in 2026 versus 2028 and, quote, instructed attorneys to do no further work on the issue of bar terms. This has been an ongoing issue, first raised at the reorganization meeting, then subsequent BOT meetings. It began with Molly Gonzalez and Stephanie Rinza's appointments being switched. Now he is attempting to remove 2 years from my 5-year term by altering official documents a second time, unilaterally changing the BOT vote without their consent. Bar appointments have been added as an agenda item for this evening's meeting. As chairman, my correspondence to legal asking why their documents have suddenly changed have gone unanswered because the mayor is attempting to pull a fast one behind closed doors. Luckily, at the November 6th bar meeting, I requested a memo from legal clarifying appointments. Their correspondence correctly lists my 5-year term ending 2028. What has changed? 2023 plus 5 years equals 2028, not 2026. On February 8th, Trustee Shaw indicated that the vote appointed Molly Gonzalez, excuse me, to the seat expiring 2027 and Stephanie Rinza 2024. The previous mayor has also communicated this to Mayor Citrin via email. In the interest of actual transparency, I have provided TP-FYI with all correspondence, including the attorney's November 17th email clarifying my term ending 2028 and that the mayor has no authority to change the configuration of the bar. Should any resident wish, please email me and I'm happy to provide all documents for your review. In the interest of an open and transparent government, I request the Board of Trustees to post documents on the town website for public review. I would like to take a moment to remind everyone these are volunteer positions that dedicated members of this community give countless hours of their time to solely for the betterment of Tuxedo Park. It is egregious that they continue to be harassed. The mayor's continued inappropriate behavior is an unacceptable abuse of his public office. It is a clear retaliation against those unwilling to bend the rules for sycophants. Cards on the table, Mr. Mayor, stop harassing volunteers behind closed doors and focus on leadership of our shared community. Let's drop the drama and get on with leading. Thank you. And I will be unavailable this evening for the bar appointments portion of the meeting, but thank you for your time.
Well, I will take the opportunity to respond to certain portions of your letter. Let me first say that as you're aware, we will be discussing the issue of terms at this meeting later on, once we are joined by Brian Stoller, who did extensive research with respect to the terms of the various members. But my question to you, sir, is you are essentially accusing me of committing a crime. You are saying that I falsified documents, that I altered official documents, and I would ask you, sir, could you please provide some evidence or some proof of the same at this time?
Certainly, it's all posted to TP-FYI.
Let me finish.
You have it in front of you.
The chief of police is here, and I'm sure he'd be very interested in hearing any evidence or proof that you may have that I, as mayor, have committed a criminal act. So feel free to tell us what it is that I did that you believe is a falsification of documents or an altering of official documents.
Yes, the number 26 is not the number 28. You sent over an email. It is directly in front of you and available for people to review. Highlighted. Very simple.
I don't understand a word that you just said. What are you talking about? What documents
Sir,
did
I'm not going to argue with you. It's in black and white. It has been submitted to this board and is publicly available for anyone's review.
You're talking in circles.
No, sir, I'm not, but I'm not going to argue with you. My 3 minutes are up.
That's fine. You hide behind that Zoom screen, sir. But at
Oh,
some point,
please.
at some point.
Yes, I'm sure you'll say that to the next person on Zoom as
some
well,
point,
sir.
sir,
Remain professional.
you-
Have a
at
good
some-
evening.
At some point, sir, you will have to justify your words.
I'm happy to.
Should we go
Let's-
through Brian's, I'm happy to go through Brian's letter now.
Brian, is Brian present? I don't believe so. I think he'll be here closer to 8, and we'll address the issue of the bar terms at that time. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I see Mr. Guazzoni had raised his hand, so go ahead, sir.
Yes, good evening, dear Mayor, Deputy Mayor Lindsay, and esteemed members of the Board of Trustees. I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to share my thoughts on a matter that holds great significance to me. It is truly a pleasure to reconnect with this esteemed board, particularly as we discuss a topic as vital as the village speed limit. Reflecting on my tenure as deputy mayor nearly a decade ago, I recall the growing concern surrounding speeding within our community. Despite my efforts to implement a local law to lower the speed limit from 30 to 25 across the village, I encountered challenges, mainly with the mayor at the time, who expressed great reservations. Nonetheless, we reached a compromise by adding the phrase strictly enforced to the incoming speed limit signs at our 2 gates. I vividly remember that day that Jeff Voss and I affixed those words to the signs, hopeful that they would serve as deterrent to potential speeders. Our commitment to safety stems from a deep-rooted appreciation for the essence of Tuxedo Park, a place my family embraced in 1997 for its ethos of the slow life, slow food, dark sky, early nights, and importantly, slow driving. Tuxedo Park has always been a haven where residents can enjoy the tranquility of nature, strolling around our picturesque lakes without fear of traffic. Then COVID-19 hit us hard, and 100 new families moved into the park of 300 homes, mostly great families and wonderful additions to our community, but for a few who brought with them the curious Long Island habits of late model high-powered German cars and a peculiar requirement to speed with them. They quickly understood that 30 miles an hour really meant 35. In addition to a fondness for skiing, there seems to be an aversion to doing one's own landscaping. It seems that the number has doubled of landscaping trucks coming in and out of the park each day with respect to 10 years ago. Landscapers in pickup trucks trawling ever large trailers zoom from job site to job site with complete disregard for the double yellow line, let alone lake walkers. At the end of a very hard day, and I really don't blame them, very little will keep them from rushing home in anticipation of a tall, cold one. In the near past, I remember a dog getting killed by a landscaper's pickup truck swinging his trailer around a curve. I still remember the feeling of sadness and thinking it could have been a child, maybe even one of my own children. As a lake walker, I have been chased off the road multiple times by cars speeding on their way to Route 17. Relax, guys, what's the rush? It's not that great out there. I walk around the 3 lakes, my wife jogs, and my 2 young sons run and bike. Personally, I've experienced the dangers firsthand, having been forced off the road by speeding vehicles. It is disheartening to witness the heightened risk faced by joggers, especially during weekdays. I'm especially concerned for the safety of my wife and my young sons who who regularly enjoy outdoor activities, biking and jogging around our lakes. At
3
the end of the
minutes.
day,
3
I'll,
minutes. Mr.
I'll make it quick.
Yep.
At the end of the day, whether it takes 4 minutes to get out of the main gate or 5 really makes little difference. And it might save the life of a dog or that of a child. In light of these pressing issues, I implore the Board of Trustees to consider enacting a local law amending the speed limit from 30 to 25 in Tuxedo Park. Time is of the essence, and I fear that without prompt action, another tragedy may be inevitable. I extend my sincere gratitude to the board for carefully considering my perspective on this matter. Your swift action could potentially save lives and preserve the essence of our cherished community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guazzoni. Mr. Madden, you're up next.
Thank you. First, I'd like to applaud Trustee Shearer's comments, with which I wholeheartedly agree. And I actually think tonight is an example of the interchange we just had there between two volunteer members, one who chairs our bar, which is a very important committee, and of course our elected mayor. I believe transparency can go a long way to solving some of these issues. It's not just the right thing to do, but invariably, when you have an information void, speculation and conspiracy theories can fill them. So with that as a backdrop, let me just start with the conclusion before I add some context and color to that conclusion. On March 21st, the village attorney sent a summary email to the village board and to Mr. Lynch, declaring that his term expired in 2026, which was contrary to everything that had been known previously, including with respect to from the village attorney. That was a month ago. And in the void of information, there are real questions, particularly given the history here in terms of what happened in October with the mayor's purported attempts to remove Mr. Lynch as chair of the bar without having legal authority to do so. At that October meeting, I exhorted this board to discuss those matters in public session, not in executive session. That didn't happen, and we never got a public accounting. Instead, the board convened to executive session to discuss, quote, the bar and legal matters. That was a clear violation of the open meeting law, and it allowed this information void to persist. I would urge you tomorrow morning to file the report that the village attorney clearly provided to you, that backed up his conclusion regarding Mr. Lynch's term not expiring in 28, but now in 2026. To inform him with no explanation is just not the right way to go about business. And of course, he's responded the way he has, given, again, the history of what happened in October. So I would urge the board to, and if you're not going to make public the full report of the village attorney that concluded how they found these, new terms, despite what was publicly known, then I think the board owes the public an explanation as to why they're not going to publish that information. I applaud the fact that it's on the agenda, and apparently the attorney who did the work is going to discuss it, but I think the public has a right to look at all the facts in their entirety, in context, under the circumstances, and given the importance of the issues at stake. The second point I want to make is a general one around confidentiality as it relates to executive session. There has long been a myth perpetuated that trustees have a duty of confidentiality regarding anything discussed in executive session. That is patently false. It is a matter I took up with the Committee on Open Government in 2017, and they've been very clear over the years that unless there's a specific statutory prohibition for a trustee or a matter of any public board to discuss a matter, then they are free to discuss anything that is discussed in executive session. And I would urge individual trustees, to the extent you think there are matters of public interest being discussed in executive session that should be discussed in public, you should make those public. After all, the vast majority of things that are discussed in executive session are permissive in nature, meaning they can be, and in most cases should be, discussed publicly. So with that tie-in to transparency, I thank you for your time and consideration.
Anybody else wish to speak on the Zoom call for public comment? Any other hands raised? No? Okay. Thank you all very much for your comments. We'll now move on to the next section, which is reports. The court report is filed. So I would ask, as the next reporting agency, Chief Alan Faust. Chief?
Good evening. For the month of March, the PD responded to 192 water and calls. We had one criminal case.
Mayor, he's very difficult to hear.
Okay, if you could,
Yes, the town police.
is that better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
192 blotters for the month of March. They had one criminal case, one arrest, 3 traffic tickets were issued, along with 10 warnings. We also did 6 alarms, including fire alarms and two burglar alarms. Had 1 medical call, and the PD patrolled 2,853 miles and had approximately 853 cars per day come through the gates. And I just want to say one other thing in regards to Monday for the Arbor Day. Between those hours of 1 and 2, if just everybody try to use a little caution coming in the gate. There'll be a lot of people. We'll have our police there, and also somebody from the town of Tuxedo should be there also.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
One issue, Chief. Several Saturday nights ago, I think it was like 12:30 in the morning on a Saturday morning, I was awakened by fireworks. This sort of has a relevance to another item on the agenda that were being shot off at the south end of the village. And I was just wondering, were reports made to your midnight shift officers? Did they conduct an investigation? And what, if anything, did they find in light of the fact that, I don't know, who would be shooting off fireworks at 12:30 in the morning?
Yes, ourselves and the town of Tuxedo also responded to the area. Both agencies got called for that, and unfortunately, by the time they got there, they were unfounded, and they weren't able to pin down the house that the fireworks were coming from.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that information. Thank you very much, Chief. Any questions for the chief?
I just have a quick question about Arbor Day. Where should people park? I mean, do you think St. Mary's is okay? Should we ask them if we could park there?
I sent an email today to the head of the committee, so hopefully I'll be speaking to them tomorrow. I assume in our original discussions, that's what they thought. They were gonna probably try to have use the church parking lot, but I don't have that confirmed at this minute.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay. DPW Supervisor Jeff Voss. Would you would you stand up next to the mic so that Trustee Scherer can hear the report as well as the other
Okay,
Zoom participants?
We've been doing a lot of drainage work behind the racetrack. On Continental Road, there was a little bit of a flooding issue with a resident that we ended up finding a pipe. The bottom of it was rotted out, an old metal drain pipe, so we replaced that with a new plastic pipe. We installed a new catch basin there and then a new asphalt gutter, which should take care of all the drainage issues there. We did some work down at the racetrack. We did the annual mowing we do every year before April 1st. We did work on our leaf machine. We had to replace bearings in it. Removed dead trees on Clubhouse Road behind the racetrack. We also removed a tree on Mountain Farm Road that had fallen. We cleaned up at the front gate area, mowed the grass and put down fresh mulch. We removed all the salt spreaders from the trucks and got them ready for construction work. We also had a problem with the gate arm at the front gate. The plate that holds the arm was worn out. It's an aluminum plate. So we called the manufacturer and got a new one. I guess they've had issues with them. And they've improved them to a heavier steel plate, so we put that on, and it seems to be working fine. Water and sewer, finished first quarter water meter readings, repaired a water main break by SOS Fuels. Responded to a resident on Westlake Road who found a lot of running water by their boathouse and wanted to make sure it wasn't a water leak or a sewer problem. We investigated it and found it to just be groundwater. Several meters, pads, and wires have been replaced, I believe 5 of them. We started hydrant flushing on Monday. This week we'll be in the village, next week will be the town. We had a few sewer blockages, one on Continental Road, one on Camp Comfort Road that we cleared, and started installing seasonal water meters.
Thanks. I do have a question. John directed me to Westlake Road where it bends before Eagle Mountain Road. There's a culvert there. It seems to be undergoing a collapse.
Right, there's a portion of it that's collapsed. John and I met with an engineer there Monday to look it over and get his recommendations.
Yeah, it looks like a significant collapse, at least from my lay perspective. So, John, I know it's not your turn, but while we're talking.
I did get a proposal from the engineer yesterday on having him prepare a plan to reinforce that area and face it with snow.
Okay,
So
great.
we'll go over that.
Thank you very much. Okay. Any questions for Jeff by any board members? No? Okay. Josh, any questions? No?
I'm sorry, I will have a list of roads to be paved for you by the end of the week.
Oh, that's great. Okay. And that we'll hand that over to the capital planning committee as part of their initial duties to evaluate. So thank you very much. Okay. Next, we have the building department capital improvements. John?
I'd like to report most of the projects are proceeding pretty well, both some village projects and building permit projects are going well. We've had at least 2 new requests for certificates of occupancy, so sales are proceeding as we go through the spring. And I'll have a written report by the end of the week. I've been out of the office the last 2 days.
Thank you. I know you've been attending a 3-day building inspector course up in New Paltz.
Yes.
How's that going?
Fine.
Okay, great. Glad to hear it. The water department report is attached to the record, and so now we turn to the village clerk treasurer. Elizabeth, do you have a report for us?
I'm the same. My reports are attached. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Any members of the board have any
Yeah.
questions?
Oh, I
Question
have a
on
couple
the,
of questions, but that's, I mean, nothing that we need to discuss, just when you review it. Just
Okay.
nothing major, just like minor things.
Okay, thank you. I'll make a motion now. Be it resolved that the board add all written reports to the permanent record. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by trustee Shaw. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous 5-0. Next, we move on to the minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes of March 20th, the regular meeting, March 25th, and April 3rd? Any modifications, comments by any of the trustees?
No comments.
no comments.
No comments?
No
Okay,
comment.
None.
I'm gonna abstain only because it has preambles on select resolutions, but otherwise it seemed correct.
okay. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve the minutes from the following meetings: March 20th, 2024 regular meeting, March 25th, 2024 special meeting, April 3rd, 2024 special meeting. Do I have a second for that motion?
Second.
Second by the deputy mayor. All in favor?
Aye.
4 yes, 1 abstention by trustee Shaw. Okay. All right, moving on to old business. We've had an extensive discussion on non-food deliveries. We had an informal poll of the community. So at this point in time, so that we can finish this up and have a final discussion and then a vote, I move that the Board of Trustees authorize and allow non-food deliveries on Sundays, and the same information be forwarded to the gate for the police officers so that they can allow non-food deliveries to be made during Sunday. Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Second by trustee Brooke. Some discussion.
Thought we discussed this before, but I guess we
We didn't
didn't
vote.
do
We
an
didn't vote.
actual vote.
Yeah, we did not.
Now,
vote.
I thought there was something in place, I could be wrong, a resolution from years ago about Sunday deliveries. And my vote is the same as when we discussed this previously. If you need something, you call on a Sunday if you need a special delivery. I just worry like opening it up to floodgate for Sunday delivery of Amazon. A lot of people walking on the roads and especially on the weekends, so that's my concern.
Deputy Mayor?
Well, I share that same concern. I think, as was alluded to before, we appreciate the tranquility and being able to walk around the lakes. And I think that walking around the lakes on a Sunday without having to worry about traffic and trucks is a real treat and a real benefit to living in Tuxedo Park.
Trustee Brooke?
I'm in favor of allowing it. You know, there's delivery of medical stuff, their delivery should be allowed. I've never found it to be a problem. And therefore, I think it's appropriate that we allow trucks. Should be like any other day.
Trustee Scherer? Any comment?
Yeah. It's a difficult issue. I agree with the comments made by both Tinka as well as Michelle around safety and having a day of tranquility. Having said that, and I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, I am in favor of the deliveries on a Sunday for the reasons Paul just laid out. I will say that I think this conversation dovetails with what Claudio raised around speed limit and strictly enforcing the speed limit. I think if we have that enforcement, it goes a long ways to mitigating, the concerns that have been raised.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Scherer. All right.
Can I have another question?
Yes.
Is this resolution unlimited, unrestricted? I mean, it's just anything can be delivered? I mean, I don't see a resolution that describes hours or size of trucks or, I mean.
Type of delivery.
Yeah,
Well,
the types of
let-
delivery.
let
I
me-
just
let me
don't
make a
see anything.
Proposal, right? That, we're assuming we pass this rule. One of the elements of the police report will be retrospectively, how many trucks come in on a Sunday. So we know how many there are, how big an issue this is. We always have the ability to reverse it if we so wish. So I just put that into.
Chief, what are the hours of deliveries of food on Sunday? Do you happen to know? Because we do permit food deliveries on Sunday.
I don't think there's any special hours for food. They can come in, the Uber drivers that seem to come in all hours of the day that I see so far.
Deputy Mayor, are you proposing time restrictions, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Sunday?
Well, I
Or
think-
I know you're opposed to the resolution
Yes.
generally.
Yes, well, I really feel Sunday's a nice tranquil day to walk around the lake. But, I mean, I think we're talking about trucks delivering food such as Fresh Direct, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, we're not really talking so much about deliveries from the restaurants or anything like that.
Well, trucks from Fresh Direct do deliver on Sundays.
I know, that's what
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to a delivery from a restaurant. But and I know that in the past, it's been decided that Fresh Direct and other food delivery trucks are allowed. And this resolution is to allow non-food deliveries. And I just don't think it's restrictive enough. I mean, it's just too open-ended.
What would you propose?
Well, I'm against it, but,
Yeah.
I would say, maybe vans. I mean, if we have to have, if it's gonna be passed, can we restrict it to vans and not trucks or, and not,
So that would have
that's not much better.
basically UPS, Amazon, but would basically eliminate Fresh Direct and other sort of larger trucks.
Well, you already, it's already been approved for Fresh Direct, so the
So
resolution.
that's considered food. Okay. Right.
The
Okay.
resolution before us is not food deliveries.
Right.
UPS uses trucks, and if we did not permit trucks, there would be no UPS deliveries. Amazon comes in vans primarily. I think if we I think my suggestion is we try this out. And as Trustee Brooks said, we do an accounting of what actually comes in on a Sunday. And if there's real level of discomfort with what is coming through the gate on Sunday, we can revisit this issue. So my proposal is we pass it as is. If you want to put hourly restrictions on it, I have no particular objection. If you have a proposal for restricting deliveries before 8 a.m. and after 8 p.m., I certainly would accept that amendment to the resolution. But I think we should give it a shot and see where it goes. I mean, the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. Any suggestion about hourly restrictions?
Well, I
How
don't
about
think people are gonna
9
be
to
walking
noon?
after 8 PM, so I don't think that,
It doesn't
not
really
too many
matter.
before
Okay.
8.
All right, anyway, I'll call the question as is. I'll call the question, and certainly I'm open to, and if any trustee wants to revisit the issue in 90 days, we'll revisit the issue.
Okay.
Okay? So I'll take the roll. We'll do it. Trustee Brooke.
In favor?
Trustee Brooke is an aye. Trustee Scherer
Aye.
is an aye. Deputy Mayor Lindsay.
Nay.
Trustee Shaw.
Nay.
And I vote aye. The resolution passes 3-2. I already gave the update on community choice aggregation in my opening remarks, so I don't have to cover that again. We'll get back to the community as soon as we have pricing options, which might be as soon as tomorrow, but I think they said more likely on Friday,
I think
right?
Friday.
Friday. Okay, thank you very
I
much.
just have one quick question on that. So everybody's automatically signed up for community aggregation and you have to opt out
That is correct.
If you're eligible.
if you're, oh, okay.
Okay, now, if, the only reason why you would not be eligible, if you've already decided to choose your source of electricity from, a third party.
Okay, but you can still see, like, if you already have a third party, you can still see what rates they offer.
It'll be public, yes.
So,
And then you have the
That's it.
option to opt out of your third-party supply and then opt in to the CCA.
okay.
So, but Michelle, like, for example, I'm signed up with Nexamp, right, which is a community solar farm that I've taken a piece of. I would not be eligible, is my understanding.
Community solar is different. You're allowed to have community solar if what you did was.
Oh, so I could do both.
Yes, it's your energy supply. When you look at your electricity bill, if you didn't choose a third party, your supply is chosen for you by ONR.
Right,
Community
okay,
solar is allowed to have in addition to CCA. You can have both.
I understand. Okay, that's helpful.
Okay, so we'll have further information in the next 48 hours. The next item on old business is renewal of the dental plan, the vision plan, and the health insurance. Elizabeth, would you be able to talk a little bit about this?
Sure. So all the dental plan and the vision plan, the rates are exactly the same. So I don't think there's much to talk about. health insurance, it is, the rate is going to increase. And the issue that I think, just faces us is if we wanted to add on the +30 rider, which would benefit people like me who have children who are living at home, and it would allow them to stay on the, my daughter's in college, it would allow them to stay on the healthcare plan while, like, until they're 30 years old. The rates, if we don't change anything, will be on a monthly basis, $18,769.80. That's for. If we go to the +30, the monthly rate will be $18,861.75. And so it's just a question of which the board wants to go with.
You're quoting the health insurance rate only, is that correct?
That's correct, because the dental and the vision are exactly the same as they were last year. I can tell you those rates if you're interested, but there's no change.
Now, what I wanted to know, what's the difference between the +30 and leaving it at 26? What's the monthly cost to the village?
The difference, it's a difference of $18,769.80 if we keep it the way it is, or $18,861.75. It's about $91, I think, or 92.
So for $92 a month, we cover your daughter essentially. And is that include any other employee that has a child between the ages
Yes,
of 6
and all of the employees who have children who, like mine, are in college. So if you're working, you have your own health care, but if you're in college, you don't have health care. And so it would cover anybody who's in that situation.
Okay. Any other questions for the village clerk treasurer on this point? No? Okay. Just Elizabeth, you gave me a script with 3 separate resolutions for each of the coverages. One for
I
the-
didn't know how you wanted to do it, so.
All right, okay. I'm gonna make a motion that the Board of Trustees approve the following: CDPH dental insurance as the same rates as last year, MWG administrators, a vision insurance plan at the same rates as last year, and MVP Healthcare at the cost of $18,861.75 a month, which will bump up the coverage to any dependents up to age 30. And do I have a second for that particular resolution?
One second.
Second by the deputy mayor. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous 5-0.
Thank you very much. I really am very grateful. Thank you.
All right.
Easy decision.
Okay, so as I advised the trustees, I forwarded Joanne Hansen's resignation from the planning board as chair and as a member. For the record, I would like to thank Joanne for her years of service on the planning board. And I look forward to her serving as chair of the Capital Planning Committee together with Deputy Mayor Lindsay and Trustee Scherer. I'm sure she'll do a great job in that capacity as she did for so many years as running the planning board. So I don't know whether we need to move to accept the resignation, but I make a motion to gratefully accept the resignation of Joanne Hansen as chair and member of the planning board. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Shaw. All in favor?
Aye. I'd also like to just thank Joanne for her many years of service and her expertise and knowledge of that she brought to her role.
Okay. And the next item, the chair being vacant, we have a very, very experienced and competent professional engineer in Jay Reichgott, and he has graced us with his presence tonight. And as the mayor with the power of appointment, I would nominate and appoint, subject to approval of the Board of Trustees, Jay Reichgott to become the chair of the planning board through the end of the village year, which is July 3rd of 2024, subject to the reorganization plan that will take place after that. Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Second by Trustee Brooke. Any discussion?
I thank Jay for wanting to step up and take that role.
So I'll call the question. I'll call the question on the appointment of Jay Reichgott as planning board chair. All in favor?
Aye.
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 5-0. Congratulations, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, now we move on. Next, as I mentioned at the last meeting, we're forming a capital planning committee. So we don't bounce from project to project without some sense of where we're going to be over the next 5 years. And with respect to that committee, as I just indicated, Joanne Hanson has agreed to chair that committee. Deputy Mayor Lindsay and Trustee Shera have agreed to be members of the committee, as well as Tom Birmingham and Gardner Hempel. So I would make a motion that the Board of Trustees approve the formation of the Capital Planning Committee with Joe Hanson serving as chair, Deputy Mayor Lindsay, Trustee Joshua Shera, Tom Birmingham, and Gardner Hempel serve as members of the committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Brooke. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Everyone?
Yeah.
Yes. 5-0.
I just have one question. It's not an indefinite appointment, right?
No.
This would just through the end of July and then you do another
Okay,
reorg.
well,
Ah,
that's,
sure.
Yeah.
all right, I understand.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's for the village year. That's a good point. Thank you, Trustee Shaw. It's an appointment through the village, the end of the village year, July 3rd, and then it'll be subject to the reorganization vote. So get to work. You don't have much time.
Our first meeting scheduled already, Sunday, May 5th.
Okay, great. All right. Okay, now we move on to the 2024 Arbor Day proclamation. Okay. So, I guess I'm supposed to read this, and is Chu Yen still on? I know she gave her spiel on this. Yeah, still there. So let me read the following. This is the Village of Tuxedo Park, New York. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas the holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the entire world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, lower heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our village increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees wherever planted, they are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Therefore, I, Mark D. Citron, Mayor of the Village of Tuxedo Park, do hereby proclaim Friday, oh, no, that would be Monday, April,
Well,
isn't it? Isn't?
I think it's still Friday, right, Chu Yen?
Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
give us a
Arbor Day is April 28th, Friday. Monday, 22nd is Thursday. But we're celebrating both days together next Monday. So
Thank
the
you. Okay.
letter is correct.
The formal proclamation, I hereby proclaim Friday, April 26th of 2024 to be Arbor Day. The Village of Tuxedo Park and I urge all citizens to acknowledge Arbor Day at a municipal celebration and tree planting ceremony on April 22.
8th.
28th.
April 28th? I'm just reading the proclamation as it's been put in front of me. I don't know the date. What day?
Did
are
I
we
get the
gonna
date
do?
wrong? Sorry about that.
The two is the.
Arbor Day is on April 28th.
That's a
Sorry
Sunday.
about that, Mayor. Oh, it is? I put the 26th. I thought that was the last Friday in April. I don't know.
Oh my God.
26 is a
I-
Friday, 28th is a Sunday.
Sorry,
This is
Elizabeth.
embarrassing. We should know when Arbor Day is.
Elizabeth is correct. My apologies to confuse everybody. 20, sorry, 26th of April, Friday, Arbor Day, 22nd April, Earth Day. Thank you. Apologies.
And the planting will be on the 22nd or the 26th? Okay.
22nd, Monday.
Okay. I acknowledge Arbor Day we will acknowledge it, a municipal celebration and tree planting ceremony on April 22nd, and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodland. And I urge all citizens to plant and care for trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Dated the 17th day of April, 2024, Mark D. Citron. And I'm signing the proclamation. Okay. Thank you,
Thank you.
Julianne.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I'm sorry, did we have a second on that motion?
Oh, second on the motion. Do we need a motion for my
I
proclamation? I don't think
I
so.
don't know. Anything that starts with whereas, I just assumed it was a
It's done.
resolution.
It's done. Okay.
Okay,
All right. Okay. Next, we have the Mayor's Monarch Butterfly Pledge. Okay. This is a request by Jill Swerble. I don't know if she's on. I don't see her.
If you have any question, Mayor, I can answer for her.
Okay. I just wanted to read here. Mayor's Monarch Pledge. Mayors and other heads of local and tribal government are taking action to help save the monarch butterfly, an iconic species whose eastern populations have declined by 90% and western populations by 99% in recent years. Through the National Wildlife Federation's Mayor's Monarch Pledge, U.S. cities, municipalities, and other communities are committing to create habitat for the monarch butterfly and pollinators, and to educate residents about how they can make a difference at home in their community. So I would make a motion here that the Board of Trustees authorize me as the mayor to sign the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, which so moved. Second by Trustee Brooke. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
May I add that we're all members of the town of Tuxedo, and May 4th is I Love My Park Day, and Tuxedo Pollinator Meadow is part of Sterling Forest, and there'll be a planting of pollinating plants, native plants in the meadow from 9:30 to noon, and we encourage everyone to join us at the Pollinator Meadow.
Okay, thank you very much. And on the last
Mayor-
bit, yes.
I'm sorry, can I just say a few words? Why the monarch butterfly is actually going to be put on the endangered species list this year. And why pollinators and butterflies are so important, because so much of our food is dependent on them for pollination, from our cucumbers to squash to almond that I know Tinker loves so much. So it's pollinators are very important, not for human beings. And that's why we need to provide a sustainable habitat to provide them with food and shelter. And that's why the pollinator pledge, that's why Arbor Day for the trees and so on and so forth. We're not just tree huggers because we like touching the trees. So that's it.
So can I just, can I make a comment and ask a question? And I'm not intending to create a debate here, Chien, but my understanding is that there was talk of colony collapse amongst the bee pollinators that hasn't happened. By the way, I'm a huge environmentalist. I think you know that. So I always want to be careful about indicating something bad's happening when maybe the pollinators are fine. I am very concerned though, and this is the question, about the monarch butterflies. And I'm curious why there's been such drastic population decline.
Okay, the bee colony collapse is in reference.
I was asking
to
about
commercial-
okay. I was asking about the monarch butterflies.
Yeah, but you mentioned the bee colony collapse. That relates to the commercial bee population. They
Right.
really collapsed around about 2000 up to 2010. They've been revived somewhat, but the wild bees and other pollinators, including the monarch butterfly, which is the most beautiful of all the pollinators, they are declining drastically in population because of the pesticides, largely because of the pesticides that we use, and also because we get rid of their habitat by, sort of, sort of planting annual plants that they don't eat, or getting rid of, for instance, milkweed, which is the only plant that the monarch caterpillar can feed on. They can't feed on anything else. So if you get rid of the milkweed, as we've done at the golf club, they can't they can't propagate there. So, this is one tiny organization, one tiny garden does something, it affects everything. In nature, everything is connected. We don't stand alone. And that's why, the monarch butterflies, a drastic decline of population is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, that's really
If I
helpful.
may add, Josh, New York State in March passed the Birds and Bees Protection Act, which drastically bans neonicotinoid pesticides. And so that is because New York State realizes the importance of protecting pollinators.
Yeah, okay, that's really helpful. It sounds like it's more than just the pesticides, so it's destroying the habitat that they need to feed off of. And Chuyan, you're right, it was the commercial bee colonies that were collapsing that have been revived, and it's no longer an issue. That's all very helpful. Sorry to digress. I think it's an important conversation, though.
Thank you.
Can I pop in and just ask a quick question? Where would we buy milkweed plants?
Lots of websites, I will send you a list, and maybe with the mayor's permission, we can even post it on the village website.
I
But the
think
Tree
it's a
Advisory Board,
great idea. Yeah.
the Tree Advisory Board website actually has links to many lists of native plants, and we're in the process of actually upgrading that particular web page, which is the tab is homeowners page. It's got lots of good information on native plants that feed from birds to pollinators to your woodchuck.
Thank you all. Brian Stolar is present, and we're going to go out of turn, and we're going to turn to Attorney Stolar on the issue of the bar terms. So, Brian, can you hear me? Would you unmute him, please?
Oh, there he is. Oh. He did.
Am I good?
Yes, you're good.
Hello?
Brian,
All right, good, thank
Brian,
you.
okay.
Yes.
Brian, this issue of the bar terms has generated a huge amount of controversy over the last 6 months. You were initially requested by Chairman Lynch to do some research into the terms themselves and the seats and the expiration of those terms. And now I'm going to turn it over to you to describe your findings, the conclusions you reached, how you reached them, and any other information you want to impart to the board and the public at this particular time.
Okay, I said that you read what I come to you. If you can wait a half hour, I could do that. If not, I can give you generally my, a report on what we were able to determine based on reviewing various board minutes dating back to 2003.
Brian,
Yes.
in light of the controversy over this particular issue, we prefer you to provide a complete report. So we would be happy to continue the meeting, give you time to get where you have to get so that you have the documents and a better reception so we can hear you as you speak. Would that be okay?
Okay, fantastic. Works for me.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll continue the meeting then. All right, another environmental notice, a quick one. This is from Dina Steele. who writes that bald eagles are now nesting once again on Eagle Mountain, and we are to remind residents to respect their habitat. Thank you, Dean Steele. All right. The next item is discussion of readoption of Chapter 49 fences of the Village Code. We had a little bit of discussion about that from the attorneys representing some parties involved in front of the bar. I have asked the new chairman of the planning board to make a presentation, a historical presentation, so that we as a board better understand Chapter 49. I would note for the record that attorneys for the BZA, Terhune, and the village attorney have done research on the issue of whether Chapter 49 has sunset, and they have both reported to us in separate reports that Chapter 49 has in fact sunset, and that is their opinion, which obviously is a conflict with Mr. Sarcone's opinion, but that's the reports we have from the village attorneys. And with that being said, I turn it over to the chair of the planning committee, Jay Reichgott, who has, I believe, a PowerPoint presentation for us.
Sent in a PowerPoint presentation. And I sent it in
Oh,
so that we wouldn't get
there it is.
Zoom bombed, so it's all in-house. Let me start by saying two things. First of all,
I'd just like to confirm that the Zoom participants can see.
We can see it. We're having a hard time hearing Jay.
Okay.
all right.
Michael.
That's better.
How's that? Okay, I'm gonna just take a little aside and say, this microphone powers an amplifier in the room. It would be possible to get a microphone that goes directly to the Zoom setup, and that would solve this problem. That's how the town does it.
Okay, we will do that.
I've been working on it. It has not been easy to get in touch with the proper people with Zoom for the audio part of this.
I believe that. Thank you. Okay, let me start with a couple of things. First, a couple of thank yous. First of all, Miss Elizabeth was very helpful in my researches and making the board documents available. And my wife is mostly responsible for the quality of the PowerPoint. And two disclaimers. First of all of this was done before I was the chairman of the planning board. Obviously, this is my research. This is not an official position of the planning board. We haven't been asked to give one yet. Of course, we'd be happy to. And the second disclaimer is, I'm an engineer, not a lawyer. So this is, if I get the law wrong, I count on you guys. Okay, so set the Wayback Machine to the closing days of the 20th century, and there was a problem with deer in the park and people putting up fences. So we go to the first slide. This is the reason for the fence law. All the evil deer, that's fine, you're good. But at the same time, the Board of Trustees was interested in promoting an open and uncluttered appearance of the village. We've heard discussions about this already. That quote comes out of the explanation that the board gave for their action at the time. So John, if you could go to, give me 2 slides. Takes so long. Yeah, you can go past that one. All right. Let me have the next one. All right, a bit of the timeline. This law was no, too many, but I'll catch up. It was first adopted in 2001 to provide some additional clarity information on fences. Was given a 5-year sunset. It sunsetted in 2006. The board picked it up again and approved it in 2007 for a second 2-year period. And their duration that they gave was the end of 2009. And I don't want to get into the question of whether that's valid or not. That's beyond my scope. The reason that it was originally sunsetted is that the board felt that in that 5-year period, perhaps the deer problem would be solved. And it wouldn't be necessary to have any more fences in the park at all. And in fact, part of the purpose of the law was to encourage the Board of Trustees and the Board of Architectural Review to look at best practices and try to come up with a better solution than fences.
Not sure if that works or not. Okay. So, all of the stuff I'm giving you here are paraphrasing of what the law says, because the law is written like code, which even I don't like to read. And here we go. They made a bunch of definitions. They defined a fence, which is the definition of a fence out of the zoning. I won't read. And then they broke it down into different kinds of fences. Interior fences, which are any fence that isn't a perimeter fence. Perimeter fences, which are fences that are erected on a property line. They define what a person is, and then they came up with two other definitions, a primary fence and a secondary fence. A primary fence is an interior fence, that is to say, a fence that's not on the property line with the setbacks, that's permanent. And a secondary fence, which is an interior fence that's supposed to be seasonal or temporary, and they were thinking of deer fences as being secondary fences. I put secondary in brackets on this because even though it was put in the original drafts of the code as a secondary fence, in the current version that's published in the town code, the word secondary fell off. So we have two definitions for fence, and I think that was a typo. All right, I've caught up for the next slide. There are three basic prohibitions. No perimeter fences are permitted according to this law, chapter 49. It's to say you can't have a fence all the way around your property on the property line. You can't put up a perimeter fence, and you can't put up an electric fence or any other hazardous fence, no landmines, anything like that. And the reason that electric fences, as far as I can tell, were banned is the DPW asked for that provision because too many DPW guys were getting shot. And this was actually a really big, this was like the one of two contentious issues with fences, was whether electric fences should be allowed or not. And there's some very interesting discussions in the minutes and in the letters that were submitted for and against the law, discussing whether or not electric fences really hurt and whether they could kill people or not, and things like that. But in the end, it was decided to ban electric fences. And then there's a section on permits, which is the next slide. And what it says is you shouldn't have to have a permit to make a secondary fence as long as you follow the rules. And then it carefully spells out that any other fences are still subject to approval according to the rules by the building official and or bar. And that you still have to follow the setback rules in the zoning. The setback rules say that any fence has to be at least 2 feet from the property line and at least 5 feet from any road. And then it discusses the construction of fences. And this was the second of 3 items of contention. Secondary fences, which are these temporary fences, are permitted to go to 8 feet high because the idea is they're supposed to be deer fences. And 8 feet is the magic number for deer. Although a 5-foot fence and a big dog is a better deer deterrent. You can't enclose more than 35% of the lot with this interior fence. This was the third big controversy. There was a lot of question as to why 35%, whether this was discriminatory against people with small lots, because 35% of a small lot might just be your house. And the question of how that 35 number came up, and in fact, in the minutes, it was admitted that 35% was an arbitrary number. They just didn't want them on the property lines. They wanted to control the size. And that 35% was a hardship, you could go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and get it waived. And only black plastic mesh and black metal stakes were permitted for these interior secondary fences. No wood posts, no unpeeled cedar posts, and there was discussion of that. Black plastic, metal posts, done. There was some suggestion that you should screen this as much as possible with existing vegetation and bushes so we didn't have to look at the fences. And there was a specific statement that primary fences or other permanent fences still needed to be reviewed by the VAR. There was no pass on that. Okay, I'm almost done. There's a provision for variances. If the 35% rule or some other piece of this was a hardship, you could go to Board of Zoning Appeals and get an area variance. And the last thing was that if you violated the fence law, if you put up an interior fence against the rules or any of those things, it was the same punishments as if you violated anything else in the zoning provisions. And that basically comes down to a $250 a day fine to fix the problem. Okay. And that's all of what chapter 49 says. With more work. If you'll humor me, I collected a couple of other slides. This is basically any other place that a fence is mentioned in village code so that everybody has an idea. Chapter 75-3 defines what a deteriorated fence is. It's pretty straightforward, so I don't have to read that. 75-9, which is maintenance standards, says you can't have any deteriorated fences. That's, can't have junk cars, can't have junk fences. And then there's chapter 100-18, which is the fence rules in the zoning. And this is sort of where we currently are, assuming the law has sunsetted. So you can build any fence you want, so long as it isn't over 2'6" without having to go to the building department. You can't have more than a 4-foot high fence in a front yard. You can't have more than a 6-foot high fence in a rear or side yard. There are the setback rules. You can't interrupt the line of sight on the road with your fence to cause a traffic hazard. And the chief of police is specifically authorized to report fences that are traffic hazards. And the other place that fences show up on the next slide is in the BAR architectural guidelines, which I won't go through in depth, but the biggest thing there is this idea of openness and minimizing the visual impacts of fences. The reason, from as far as I can tell, the real driver for this chapter 49 was a concern of having every lot in the park suddenly surrounded by a giant fence, and what that would do to view sheds and neighborhoodness and all the rest of it. And I have some personal recommendations on things to look at with this law as you discuss it. And you gave me the podium, so I'm going to say them. First of all, whatever you do, if you reenact it, don't sunset it. It doesn't seem to do what it was intended to do, which was to drive discussion. And it's the same amount of work to abolish the law as it is to re-enable it. So just keep it going until you need to change it. I tend to agree with the 35% rule being a little bit weird, and I would suggest that you look at a setback rule instead, which is more enforceable and practical, whatever that is, 20 feet from the property line, 50 feet from the property line, something. I would impose a permit requirement. I would make it nominal, but somebody should, if they want to put up one of these interior fences, should bring a piece of paper with the outline of where the fence is going to go and a sample of the material to the building official, so that the building official can go, yep, that meets the rules, go ahead and put it in the file, or say, this doesn't do it, you're going to have to go deal with it as a regular fence with bar and all the rest of that process. And that being said, there should be some nominal fee because this costs money and your neighbor shouldn't have to pay for your fence. So I don't know what that would be. I assume a couple of hours of building official time, which is something on the order of a few $100s, I believe. I would fix the secondary thing just so the definitions are clear. And the last thing is, I would really suggest that if we want to control deer in the village, we should be looking at deer control options separate from the fence rules. My personal preference is high velocity application of lead pills, but there are other methods that work. I have, of course, be happy to answer questions if you have any. There's a copy of my bad photos of the pages from the minutes book, if anybody wants them. I've sent them to John, you can distribute them, or you can go and look at the minutes, where it's easy to read, either one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jay.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board members?
No, very helpful. I mean,
Yeah, very helpful. I just, what is a high velocity application of
I
lead?
think that's a bullet.
Oh, but that's what it is.
I think that's a fancy way of saying a bullet.
question is, when the deer fence issue came up, the Department of Health talked about, if there was concerns about spread of Lyme disease. And the Department of Health had some positions on allowing fence to prevent the spread of Lyme disease. That was never part of any of the regulations we had.
I don't recall seeing anything about Lyme disease at the time. That was not on the
There wasn't a
radar.
problem 100 years ago. Okay.
Any comments, Josh, or questions to Jay? Okay. All right, so, thank you very much for that. As I mentioned at the start of the meeting, while the agenda indicates a resolution for a 90-day moratorium on construction of perimeter fences, that's not going to happen because we have to meet certain requirements, including submission of a proposed moratorium to the Orange County Planning Board for their approval or consent. But I think it's important that we begin a discussion to get a sense of the board, whether anyone has any particular interest in either readopting this provision of the code, Chapter 49 in some version. And the reason I say that is because, from my perspective, I think that the character of this community would be altered substantially if we simply said, go ahead, build a fence, and the applications are coming in. There's an application, we have an attorney representing an applicant who's presently before the bar. There was a second application, not quite a perimeter fence, from a property up in the Weewa. And I think it's important. People can put up fences, but my primary concern is creating an encircling fence on properties, giving the view of almost like a prison camp. And I think it's something we should discuss, and we'll see if the board has a consensus, and if not, no. But I brought it forward, and I appreciate everything Jay has done to introduce us to this issue, and I'd be happy to discuss it tonight with the trustees. Does anybody have any feelings one way or another about whether perimeter fences are appropriate in the village in light of our historical nature of Tuxedo Park and the founder's desire to, I assume, based upon some of the writings, to have an open view shed from property to property, because I'm sure plenty of communities have fences, and it's a different character and a different nature.
Well, I for one would not be supportive of perimeter fences. I don't think that we want to become the Hamptons. So I think readoption sounds like a great idea to me. And of course, we should have the conversation around, for example, the arbitrary 35% and maybe some of the other items. And Jay, thank you very much for that summary. That was extremely helpful.
I agree. And I think that, so I guess the questions are, if we are going to prohibit perimeter fencing, but we're going to allow some, then it's like at what height? We have to think about the height too.
Well, we have height in the code of 6 feet on side yards and backyards and 4 feet in the front yard. And we can certainly talk about that. That's the present code. Whether for a fence that's inside the property, that's an acceptable height limit. I don't have a particular preference with respect to the height. My only concern is an encirclement of every property with a fence. What somebody does inside their property, far away from someone else's property, is their own business, and I'm willing to consider anything you might propose with respect to the height of interior fences.
Yeah, I think it goes to the percentage. 35% doesn't seem quite right.
Yeah, I mean, I think he suggested not not percentage, but
Setbacks.
which seems to me to be fine. I think we need to look at what the rules that we might consider are. I think materials such as the black plastic that's quite invisible, that's effective against deer, are around and quite good. The
And they're not
existing
permanent.
laws are,
Right, they're not permanent.
the existing laws are, height limitations and stuff, they exist independent of 49. But if we're gonna do 49, I think we have to recast that law and seek opinion of council and review it more carefully about what are the pieces we think are appropriate for the community.
And if I may, I would suggest questions of height and setbacks, or areas, there's the Board of Architectural Review can talk about what things look like, and there's the planning board who we exist to talk about and give recommendations on questions of setback and zoning and things like that.
Yeah,
And I can't speak for the BAR, of course, but the planning board would be happy to advise you on this if that's what you would like.
Yeah, I would also like, whatever we draft, I'd like to give discretion to the planning board and the BAR to grant variances. In some cases, quite liberally, if it's grandfathered or whatever it is. Because I don't think writing complicated laws on this stuff, I think is exceptionally difficult. Who knows what you're doing, but you kind of know what you'd like things to look like. So I would say if we redraft Article 49, we actually redraft it. Look at it carefully, think about changes, seek counsel to make those changes, and then go forward until we have a clear sense of it. It's sunset.
Well, I think we should get community input as well. I mean, this is not a decision that we make it
No, it's a law, so you have.
independent. We have a public hearing
It's a
and
public
we
hearing.
go through the process. But I think we should start the process, and I get a sense at least that a majority of the board, if you count me and certainly the other trustees, are willing to at least explore this. Okay? And that being said, and perhaps, input from the planning board would be appropriate. And we certainly would appreciate it because you have more expertise on this than we do. And also input from the bar. And on the one issue that I know the lawyers who are sitting in the back are concerned with, which is grandfathering with respect to current applications, I will leave that question to the village attorneys. They'll reach their own conclusion about that and advise us whether a grandfathering provision or whether grandfathering under the law as it exists is appropriate. We're not gonna take that one up. We're just gonna address the future.
Yeah, I mean, the best way to do it is if we're gonna do that, because we want everybody's input, we have available copies of the law. People are encouraged to review them, make notes, edit, whatever it is, and we sit down in a working session and review all that stuff to come up with what we think is essentially the best outcome.
Okay.
Very, very simple, efficient. I'm more concerned about efficient than anything else.
All right. Well, with that being said, we'll consult with the village attorney to draft a proposal that reflects our concerns about perimeter fences, incorporating, and the old chapter 49 is a attachment to the agenda. So anybody who's watching just has to click onto the website and look for the agenda items. And you can take a look at the old chapter 49, so you have a sense of what the law used to be as Jay described it in his excellent presentation. And we'll work off that, and we'll come back to consider adopting similar type of legislation after consultation with all the interested parties. Is that agreeable?
Absolutely.
Is that agreeable, Trustee Scherer? Okay, so that being said, the next item, the resolution on the 90-day moratorium is tabled, of course, based on what I said. And after that, item I, resolution to provide refunds to town sewer customers. I don't know whether anybody noticed, but the town's been working off Tuxedo Road with respect to sewer repair. Perhaps 15 residents in the village are actually connected to the town sewer rather than to the village sewer system. And unfortunately, we learned that since those folks were getting village water, they were being billed for sewer service from the village, which they were not receiving because their sewer service is actually coming from the town. And those people paid into the sewer fund, and now the only appropriate thing to do is to provide a refund because they are not our sewer customers. The trustees were provided with the specifics of the customers who are affected. The amount, I think, is about $29,000 or $30,000 in total. And
17.
I think it's 29 or 30. But whatever that amount is, as calculated by Denise, I would make a motion that we refund to those residents who were not village sewer customers those monies they paid for those services that in fact they did not receive because they are town customers. Do I have a second on that? Second by Trustee Shaw. All in favor of providing a refund to those residents, say aye.
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 Josh?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous, 5-0. Okay. I circulated a proposed landscaper licensing application form. I hope everybody's had a chance to see it. It was also included as an agenda item and an attachment on the website. So if anybody wants to look at it, that's fine. We passed the landscaper licensing law, and the application form itself will be given to the individual commercial landscapers to be filled out. It contains the basic information that's required, and most importantly, it contains the prohibitions within the code. The reason it's before the board tonight is because the code says that the board has to specify those chemicals which use is prohibited in the village. And those chemicals are listed in the application. There are the primary 4 phosphate related fertilizers. And as the deputy mayor mentioned, those chemicals, neonicotinoids, which the state legislature, through its own wisdom, has prohibited in recent legislation. Has anybody had a chance to review the application? Any comments, any recommended changes? And I should note that there is no fee that is being assessed at this point in time. If anyone would like to amend that and recommend a fee, certainly we can consider that, but it's a no fee application at this point, which means I assume that no landscaper will pass on an additional charge simply because they have to fill out an application. Any comments from the board members about the form itself?
I think it's pretty understandable for everyone to read.
We'll get it
It
posted on the
says-
website
yeah.
also, so that you can do it online. And it will cover the balance of the year.
Balance of, until the end of
December,
June?
no,
Oh,
the
the
balance
calendar
of the
year.
calendar
Okay,
year.
good.
Yeah, December 31st of 2024. Yep.
Okay.
Josh, anything? No? Everybody? Okay, I'd make a motion to authorize the mayor to distribute the form to the landscapers through the police booth as they come in to ensure that every landscaper receives a copy with directions that they should fill it out, return it with the documentation, and then their license plate, the license plates of their vehicles will be added to the register so that they can enter as approved landscapers. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
I'm gonna vote no because I don't believe in the landscaper licensing. So I don't disagree with the chemicals, like prohibiting that, but we already had that in the code. But I'll be voting no because I don't believe in the landscaper licensing. So.
Any other comments? Any comments? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Trustee Shaw's voting no. Trustee Brooke?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor?
Aye.
Trustee Scherer?
Aye.
Aye, and the mayor votes aye. 4-1, Elizabeth, on the application form. Okay. discussion of fireworks displays. I see Brian's back on before we move to fireworks. Brian, are you now available to give us a comprehensive report on the bar terms?
Give me about 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item. I included in communications I've had with AJ Reyes with respect to fireworks. Issues were raised not by me, but by some residents after the fireworks display earlier this year at the Tuxedo Club about the effects of the heavy metals and phosphorus from the exploding fireworks that fall into the lake and the environmental impact on the lake. I asked AJ to look into it. I sent him a couple of articles that I received, and he gave a response indicating that the issue of phosphorus and heavy metals in the lake is being studied. And I bring that to the attention of the board because, you know, we have a traditional 4th of July fireworks display from the club. But the question becomes whether, in light of the fact that the club now apparently offers celebrants the opportunity to have a fireworks display, plus the illegal display from 2 weeks ago on 12:30 at night on Saturday, whether we should look carefully at whether we should promote or allow fireworks displays over the lake other than July 4th. My understanding is the club is proposing a Labor Day fireworks display. And the issue becomes, what effect are these displays going to have on water quality, and whether it's something we should concern ourselves with. Does anybody here have any thoughts on that?
The fireworks from the club, it only happens at Labor Day if July 4th is rained out.
Oh, okay.
They're not planning to do two.
Oh, okay, thank you
Still
for that.
planned for July 4th and that, so.
I think they sent a new letter.
Right, whatever.
I thought they sent a new letter asking for a second.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's correct, that they wanted to two.
Yeah, I think maybe,
Recently.
I wasn't aware, I spoke with one of the governors just a few days
Well,
ago
we got a
about it,
governor
so-
here, right? Is Josh?
No, I'm a former governor,
Oh, okay.
thankfully. I don't remember seeing that letter either. It does not mean that we didn't receive it.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing that.
But regardless, it's one or two. I mean, I read the complaints or the suggestions, however you want, that you forwarded, and I do think, while I think there's limited risk to heavy metals affecting the drinking water, there is clearly some level of contamination, and I do think it's worth limiting the amount of fireworks that we're setting off around the lake.
Maybe we can, at least keep it as one at July 4th until we have time to look at more studies.
Okay, so I mean, we don't really necessarily even need a resolution about this.
Right.
As the requests come in, we can make a determination.
I agree.
If there is a request for a second fireworks display by the club on Labor Day, I'd like to be able to respond to that with either a yes or a no. My preference would be to say, well, one a year is probably enough. Does anybody have any feelings about the second display, if there in fact is a request for a second one from the club?
I say we wait and see what the club comes.
I'm sorry, if we did get the letter that it was posted on the website for the March 20th meeting. So if you have time, you can go clearly requesting two dates.
Okay.
It might be in case one is a rain date, then they want to.
It isn't, I'm sorry, it isn't. They're specifically saying they want the two dates.
Well, I'm certainly willing to wait until next month. Everybody gets a copy of the
Yeah.
letter, and then we can make a decision. 'Cause,
Yeah, I would defer this conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
I would like some information from the club as to why they want that second date and just understand how important it is to them.
Okay, well, and then we'll.
That's probably a good, maybe I have it wrong.
We'll continue the discussion next month, and we'll get an answer from the club why, if in fact they want a second fireworks display. All right, Brian, are you ready for us?
I am getting there. Give me, hold on.
Fishing Club.
Okay, we'll move on to the Weewa Fishing Club stocking request. The Weewa Fishing Club has made a request. It may be too late, according to the letter I received from their president, Tom Fuller. They would like to pay for restocking of fish in the Weewa Lake. And I sent everybody has a copy of it. Any comments on it? Any thoughts about?
Support it.
I support.
Okay, let me get the resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve the Weewa Fishing Club request to provide fish stocking in Weewa Lake. I make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Brooke. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Okay. Next, I sent everybody the letter I received from Shed Media. It was the second contact from them. They want to film a portion of, what is it?
Housewives of New York.
Housewives of New York at a home on Lookout Stable Road. How do people feel about them filming here in the village? I believe it's interior, but you saw the details, the trucks, all that equipment they're gonna bring in. I'm opening it up to discussion.
They have filmed before, and I believe what we did last time is they just had a police escort to make sure that they did that and didn't drive around and film. And then they had the police escort to film maybe one or two places that did not show other homes or something, and maybe just a mountain view. But that's what we did, I believe.
Do we charge a fee?
I don't think so.
Hmm.
I don't think
The
so.
town has a fee, for filming. We could ask
Yeah.
what they charge.
Yeah, I don't think that.
Well,
I
there
don't
is-
think
Say it
so.
again?
But
A
it's
fee.
not,
If it's a
there
fee.
is a fee for filming, but, we probably don't have time to enact that.
Yeah, we'd have to amend the code on that.
Right,
But for
there's no
future,
time for
we
that.
might want to consider a fee for a production company that makes money on TV.
I, Tinka and Paul, seem to remember we started this discussion probably at the end of the last administration. I thought we had a pretty comprehensive document, which I guess never got passed, but work has been done on this in the past, so it may be worth digging that up again.
Yeah, I mean, I remember looking at documents, particularly in LA, where there were permits granted to film in lots of residential neighborhoods. And they had a clear set of rules
Yeah.
that were easy in principle. In this application, it is so limited and defined, I would say it's fine. We're happy to approve it. The issues we raised were not filming Real Housewives of New York, but for social media posts. If somebody's talking about what their
Yeah,
life is like.
that's
Passport.
that's right. Yep.
Shows club property, not their property. This looks to me pretty easily approvable because it's specific property.
How about we charge a fee for the police
Well,
to
definitely.
remain at the scene during the course of the filming? You have extra duty for the officers? Keep people at a
Yeah, that's
distance?
not a fee that we have to go through a
Right.
process of approving, but it's
Right.
it's a cost.
We do charge residents if they use the special duty services of officers for parties, right?
Right?
To assist in directing park where people should park.
And
Well-
how would it be determined?
It's $200.
Okay, so that there's a fee for the use of the police, which
Yeah.
I think it's probably should be more than $200.
Well, it's $200 per, it's
It's a
time.
minimum of two.
Yeah, it's a
2
minimum of
hours,
two. It
I
depends on
think.
the hours.
Yeah.
I
But
forgot how many
the
hours.
chief's not here, but
It's a minimum of
depending upon the
2
hours, we should
We
charge
haven't
them the
changed it.
police fee.
Right.
So I guess plus something, I think we asked the policeman, asked the chief of police, if we understand it, what would a fee be for,
Could be
4
5
hours
hours.
and 8 hours and
Right.
12 hours of police, and we just pass that fee on.
Well, let's do that now so they can film and we can tell, the chief will tell us, okay?
Yep.
And then also that it said in the application was only interior, that there
Right.
wasn't any exterior filming.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
all right. So, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve the request from Shed Media to film an episode of Real Housewives in the Village of Tuxedo Park, solely interior, at the address on Lookout Road, subject to a fee for a police officer, dependent upon the number of hours that the filming takes place, to be paid, well, they can pay it afterwards, to be paid directly to the village. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, and the date of that was in the letter. I think, was it April 23rd? Does anybody know? It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's okay. It's one day. Second by Trustee Brooke. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we'll get a letter. I'll check with the chief, and we'll get a letter out to them responding. We approve the application subject to the payment of a fee of X dollars per hour for a police officer. Okay?
I do, Mayor, I do think it's worth it. Again, I don't think we ever passed any rules or regulations or laws with respect to filming generally. And it may be worth revisiting. I know we did work on this, and I feel like it's maybe being wasted, and I don't think we want to be reactionary in the future.
Okay,
So
I'll see what I can find in the historical records of Village Hall. With respect,
I don't think anything will be in the historical. The big issue that we were facing was people with cameras, like little daily things, taking films of them walking in front of the school or walking.
I think it was broader than that, Paul. I do. I think
I do recall some other concerns, and I can go over them with the mayor regarding the amount of trucks and noise and
Great.
possibly generators that sometimes movie and production equipment may have.
And I thought we had a pretty comprehensive document from another town. Paul, you said California. I actually think it was from California. And again, with the turmoil of the last election, I think it got lost in the mix. I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel here.
all right, well,
I'll go back into my emails and see what I can find as well, Mayor.
Okay. All right, we'll address the issue. Thank you, Trustee Scherer. Okay, I see Brian is in a house or wherever he might be. So if we would unmute him. All right,
Easy. Oh, yeah, we only
Can
have
we
two
just
more.
finish the last two items on the agenda and then go back to Brian?
Okay.
That
Yeah.
way we just knock it
They're
off.
pretty
and
much
Okay,
done
sure.
anyway.
Well, actually, one of them is being removed. So the next item, and I'll turn to the deputy mayor for this discussion of May 11th community campaign.
Well, I did talk about it already in my comments at the beginning of the meeting, and it's just, I hope everybody comes. It will get us practically there to being certified as a clean energy community. So it'll be very good for the village because it means direct grants
And where's it being
from
held?
NYSERDA. It's at the train station in Tuxedo,
Okay, and you know the hours as you're sitting here?
9:30 to noon.
Okay.
And I have flyers that Elizabeth can post on the website.
Okay, that's great. Item P, authorize the deputy mayor, is being withdrawn at the request of the deputy mayor. That leaves the added item of election hours. I have to report to the Board of Elections the hours that we conduct our election, that they conduct our elections. So, Elizabeth, do you happen to remember what the poll hours were at the last election?
Yes, they were 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., which is the longest that they can be.
Okay. The Board of Elections asked me if we would reduce that evening to 8 p.m. because they are running early voting for the primaries, which take place in June. So I told them that I would relate that request to the board, that the termination of polling hours would be 8 p.m. rather than 9 p.m. at their request. And I'll
Mayor, this is Jared speaking. I'm just referring to section 15104 of the election law, which provides that the minimum hours, it's 3B, excuse me as I look it up, sorry. Board of Trustees of a village shall at least 60 days before any village election conducted by either the village clerk or the Board of Elections on the date which shall state the hours during which the polls shall be open, which shall include at least the hours from noon to 9 o'clock in the evening. So I'm happy to talk with the county board, but I would recommend just adhering to the statute for the time being until we have that clarified.
8 to 9.
All right, well, I'm sorry, 8 a.m.?
Yeah, I think you suggested.
No, it was last year was 7 a.m. to 9 p.m.
People who vote before they go into. the
Yeah, I
city.
mean, I have no problem with that. If
Eight is late.
Okay.
I'm only relaying
Seven.
the request to the commissioners that we reduce it to 8 p.m. But if that violates village law, you'd explain that to them, Jared?
Surely.
Okay, you'll let them know. Should we keep it the same?
Yeah.
Keep it
Still
safe.
I
nine.
would.
What's the date?
I'm sorry, Mayor, they also said, they would have preferred for us to start at 8 a.m. They were requesting 8 to 8.
Yeah, I think
Can't
this
tell.
community is a little different. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
big commuter community. So they're
Yeah, I agree, Tinka.
drive to the city
All right,
and
well,
come back.
we haven't made any friends at the Board of Elections, and I'm sure that this won't endear us to them, but that's just the way it's gotta be. So does everybody want to continue the same hours?
Yeah, 7 to 9 is great.
7 a.m. to 9 p.m. it is. I move that the election hours for June 18th be the polls be open at 7 a.m. and close at 9 p.m. at Village Hall. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Josh? Motion carries unanimously. And I authorize Jared to relay this vote and hours to the commissioners. Okay, can we move on to everybody done with the agenda? At least this portion. Okay, Brian. You're on mute.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize for before. I thought that I would have Wi-Fi in the location where I was and I didn't. So I had to get in the car and head to a place where I do, and I am at home right now. In any event, as you pointed out when you introduced this, Mayor, initially there was an inquiry with respect to seats and terms, one of which was Mr. Lynch's term. So we had done some significant research after we had received minutes from the village dating back to 2003 and worked our way chronologically to figure out who's sitting in what seats. So specifically with respect to Mr. Lynch's appointment, here's what we determined, all right? Mr. Lynch was appointed to the bar on June 26th, 2023. And the minutes of that meeting, the June 26th meeting, identify that position as an open seat, which is to fill an open seat, which is the only position he could be appointed to, is to one that is open. It did say in there that it's an appointment to the open seat to be determined. So, in our efforts to get to this point, we did determine what the appointment was made for. I would note, though, that the appointment that was made for Mr. Lynch was in June of 2023, and the village official year starts in July. So the June appointment would have been could not have been for the term that started immediately after the first Monday in July, which I believe was July 3rd, 2003. Because that seat did not become available until then. So the only open seat, there would have had to have been a different open seat at that time. In fact, had Mr. Lynch been appointed to the board after July 3rd, 2023, it would have been made for the term that commenced in July 3rd, 2023 and continued to July of 2028. But if it was to fill that open position that normally would end in 2023 and thereafter in 2028, I don't believe Mr. Lynch was appointed again after July 2023. So he would currently be serving as a holdover. Not my conclusion. I'll get to that in a moment, but I just wanted to point that out. So in trying to determine the open seat that was in play as of June 26, 2023, which is the date that Mr. Lynch was appointed, we reviewed all the minutes and note the following. The bar members at that time were serving the following terms. So there was Molly Gonzalez, whose term was due to end in July of 2024. She had been appointed in January of 2023 to fill an unexpired term that had been occupied previously by Josh Aaron. Christopher Gao serves for a term ending in July of 2025. He was appointed in September 2020 for a full term to end again in July of 2025. Sheila Tralins, and I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. She was then serving, and then being again June 26th, as a holdover in the position whose term, if appointed for a full term, would have ended in July of 2026. I would note that she was appointed in October of 2016 to fill a position then terminating in July of 2021. So since again, it's a 5-year term, that term goes from 2021 and then 2026. After her initial appointment in 2016 through that 2021 term, she would serve as a holdover once 2021 came because she was not reappointed. And in fact, when you look at the reorg meetings in July of 2021, and again in July of 2022, it was noted that she continued to serve as a holdover until the board appointed a replacement. Stephanie Rinza served for a term, or currently serves for a term ending in July of 2027. She was appointed on January 18th, 2023 to fill a seat that had been occupied previously by Christopher Boshears. And then Robert McQuilkin is currently serving, as far as we can tell, based on reviewing the minutes, as we pointed out, and chronologically bringing it forward, as a holdover for a term ending on that would end on July 3rd, 2028. He was appointed on December 18th, 2019 to fill the position that previously had been occupied by Christian Brunner, and the term of that position that Mr. Brunner was to occupy would have expired in July of 2023. So that position was at 2023, and then 5 years later would be 2028. So the only open seat at the time that Mr. Lynch was appointed would have been the holdover position that Sheila Tralins was occupying at that point in time. The other 4 positions were currently filled, and you would not be able to, as a board, would not be able to appoint a new member to a position that already was filled. So based on that, it is our conclusion that Mr. Lynch's term would expire in 2026. So the July meeting, the official meeting in 2026, because that is when Ms. Tralins' term would have ended if she was serving a full term. And again, since she was serving as a holdover, that was the only position in June of 2023 that was not then filled. So that's where we got this. And I know that's the information the board was looking for. I hope it's helpful. I hope I was able to explain it so that you understand it. But it's pretty clear based on the minutes going back to 2003 that we were provided with and reviewed that the current each of the terms that we identified are the terms that each of those board members currently occupy, and that Mr. Lynch's term is the 2026 position.
Questions from the board members?
Yeah, I thank you, Brian. It was very clear to me, your analysis, and so it's completely understandable. It gets a little confusing when people are appointed to fill terms, when people resign. So, it's hard to keep track of, but you did a great job. And when I look at the expiration of the terms, they are as they should be. One expires this year in 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. So that's as it should be. 5 members with 1 term expiring each year. So thank you for going through all that. I thought it was very clear. Thank you.
You also have John to thank for that. He provided me with all the minutes and all of the information, and took a while to get through it, but we worked our way through it, and it was pretty clear. I mean, the alternative, and I don't think it definitely would not be correct, would be that Mr. Lynch would be holdover right now, in which case his position can be filled at any time by the board, but that's not our opinion. So rather than consider that 2028, again, as I walked you through the terms, it's pretty clear that he's a 2026 appointee.
Any other questions from board members?
Yeah, I thought for some reason that it was that Molly served to 27 and then Stephanie were based on memo or something that John sent, whose position they were. I can't find the email with that.
Yeah, Molly Gonzalez was appointed on January 18th, 2023, to serve in the, for the position that Josh Aaron had been occupying. And Josh Aaron was occupying the position that terminated in 2024. Just walking back. He had taken over in March of 2017 for Patrick Donahue, it looks like. That was the 2019 position, which went to 2024. And obviously the 2019 position was the 2014 position. So before that, you had, looks like Jacqueline Green in that position. And so on. Again, we did this chronologically, walking all the way back for each of the appointments that were made for each of the positions, and was able to figure out who took whose position in each instance for the bar.
I have a question, and it has to do with the minutes that are generated and then approved by the Board of Trustees. Do the minutes represent the official records of the village in terms of the actions taken by the Board of Trustees?
They do.
And if the minutes of January 18th of 2023, which were approved without modification at the February 2023 minutes, agree with your conclusions regarding the terms for Ms. Gonzalez and Ms. Rinza, would you say that that's the official record of the village with respect to their seats and who they replaced and when their terms end?
I would say this. When you make an appointment, you can only make an appointment to what is then an open position. So if your minutes happen to state that they're replacing somebody else and it's not the right name, if that position was not then open, then that's not the position that person would be appointed to. They can only be appointed to a position that was open. So if the names for the replacements were accurate, then that would be correct. But that's not the relevant part of what you're looking at in the minutes. It's the actual appointment and for the position that's made available. You can't bump people around, unintentionally by virtue of saying this person replaced that, person A replaced person B. So
my point, Brian, is if the minutes set forth that Molly Gonzalez was appointed to complete the term of Josh Aaron and Stephanie Rinza was appointed to replace Chris Boshears, is that controlling, or can that be changed later on in any way, shape, or form?
I thought he just answered that question. I thought what he said was it would depend on who they actually replaced.
No, I'm only asking whether the minutes are considered the official record with respect to the replacements.
Brian, you should answer the question. I thought you answered it, but go ahead.
Yeah, but with respect to the person who is the new appointee, yes, that person is appointed. That's what those minutes will reflect. For instance, what you're looking at though with the January 18th, 2023 minutes, it does say that Molly Gonzalez was appointed to complete the term of Josh Aaron, whose term expired in 2024. That actually is correct based on our review going back to 2003. And same with Stephanie Rinza replacing Christopher Boshears. That is consistent with the information that we found going back to 2003. So it's all correct in those minutes. But my point that I was making was if it said Stephanie Rinza replacing person B when she was actually replacing person A, then the minutes would not supersede the actual appointment. It would have to be for the person whose position was then available, not the person who we thought position was then available. So if it says B and it should have been A, then the minutes are not reflective of the actual appointment. Can't be, because you can't appoint somebody to fill somebody else's term where they're currently sitting in the seat.
What what if in this case he had two vacancies at the
Right.
same time?
It's
That's
yeah, then that's a different issue.
okay.
Correct.
Two vacancies on January 18th of 2023. Do the minutes control?
Because you had, all right, because you had Rinza and Gonzalez. The minutes control and their, the minutes do control in that instance. Yes, I apologize. I forgot that I was reading it and thinking of them separately, but that doesn't matter if you put one in front of the other. It's the fact that you're doing them at the same time, making the appointment at the same time. You can identify, as long as the two seats that you identify are open, then you choose which one each person will fill.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much, Brian. We appreciate all the effort that you and your associates put into this research. We'll make a decision about how to proceed with respect to releasing any of the findings. Jared and Brian, there's a proposal made to release Brian's memo regarding his conclusions. Do you have any opinion on that? As the attorneys who drafted that memo and as the village attorney?
I would leave that up to the board. You are the client, and although it was given as attorney advice, in particular instances, if you think something is appropriate to give out, you certainly can do that. You don't have to give out you can give out the entire report that we provided to you. That's acceptable.
Yeah, or we can black out parts of it. I mean, the issue is we are provided advice under attorney-client privilege. And
But
therefore,
I don't think there's advice here, right? This was an analysis.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
Brian,
It's
what
a
I would,
mix. It's a
what I,
mix. It's a mix.
Okay,
There is some
Brian,
parts of
Brian,
it that's legal advice.
okay, so can I make a suggestion? I mean, it sounds like you're comfortable with it being released, but what I would suggest is, to Paul's point, if there are parts that you would rather, that are advice oriented, that you would rather not be in the public domain, feel free to, strike those out. But let's get this into the public domain. I think Sean Madden made a very good point earlier. The lack of transparency, and again, this is not accusatory, but because we've taken so long to get this in the public domain, it's led to a lot of accusations, which again, I think are unfair. But let's get this information out into the public domain. I think you did a very good job of summarizing it tonight, but I think having it in writing so that people can actually analyze, audit, and verify by themselves would be great.
yeah, I'm not concerned about anything here. I'm concerned about a principle where I want Jerry.
I agree.
that
I agree.
thing relevant
So-
documentation received that doesn't ever call into a question attorney-client privilege with ourselves and counsel.
So-
whatever he takes out, he takes out, and we release it.
Right, and the amount, the stuff that would be taken out is very minimal, and it doesn't make it's easy to follow without that information in there.
Okay,
I think Paul was making another point, Brian. I just want to make sure you're comfortable with is we're not setting a precedent for releasing attorney-client, privileged advice.
No, this would not serve as a blanket waiver of attorney-client privilege. You as the board are electing, if you will, to waive privilege with respect to this document, subject to minor redactions that Brian's going to review, but it will not affect the privilege on a going forward basis or for any other past, correspondence or communication.
Great.
minor redactions. And it's very clear that with the redactions, we're not waiving anything about attorney-client privilege.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by the deputy mayor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, 5-0. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Of course.
Okay. All right, let's finish this up and move into executive session. We have the Keatings here. Audit of claims, Elizabeth?
Sorry about that. I had to unmute myself.
No,
Yeah, so
that's
just
fine.
for the record, the audit of the general fund, 136,000 $77.57. $1,514.44, and the was, sorry, $16,603.20.
Questions by, you have questions?
No, not on the audit of claims,
Okay.
just on the budget transfers.
Okay, next budget transfers, please, Elizabeth.
List them already in the record. Just a note of explanation. In the sewer fund, there's a very large transfer there that looks much bigger than it really is because it's $132,000. But one of the things that we're trying to do is to get our accounting, our chart of accounts in order because we had strayed a little bit from the New York State chart of accounts, and we really want to stay in line with them. Is a number we have used. It doesn't chart of accounts. So I'm just moving it over to its proper number, which is 8130.4. And there is within that category there under 8130.4 for I&I. So I'm just going to move it over to the 0.4, which is the number. They don't use 8130.5.
You're choppy, Elizabeth, if you get closer to the computer. Thank you.
I can't get, it's not me, it's, I don't have a good internet connection tonight for some reason.
Okay, do you have questions, trustees, deputy mayor, for her?
No,
we
we're,
went over that one.
we're good on this one. This
Okay.
is the COA thing.
Okay,
And then, so my question, the next one is on the general fund, when you're it from the records management into
Right.
others. So we didn't do any records management.
No, that exactly. So far, that's that money is available,
I have it
and
up.
you know, we've only got about you know, see what we've used to date. This, you know, the like the reports that I've submitted are through the end of the month of March. I can
Right.
actually look in the accounting system to see what we've used to date, and there's only about 6 more weeks. We haven't used anything in records management, and so I'm anything at this point. I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, I'm
Okay,
cool with that. We
all right,
We just have to think if we want to add it to this year's budget, the records management.
okay.
And then the one for the police, that's fine.
That's just a very, yes, very.
Yeah.
I mean, they're so good. Their budget's perfect, normally just a little bit. So I'm just moving a little bit from one to the other to cover it.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. And then, so I'm good with all of the rest, except is the appropriations, what chart of account is that? 3,000 or where are you taking that?
Well,
from?
that's, I don't know offhand. That's basically saying that we're pulling money out of the reserves to
Right.
cover a shortfall. And of course, the big issue there was the street paving. It was so high.
Right, right. So I guess we just have to figure out, I mean, if there is any other way to do it, but, okay.
And I mean, you know, you're right about that. And that's what it did occur to me. Part of the issue is that we're really not, I'm not supposed to any amount. I'm not supposed to. The board approves an amount. I'm never supposed to go over that. So I'm putting that in there just so that I can definitely stay within budget. And my feeling was in May, you know, we can always do a you know, I put in more money than I needed, we can pull it back out again. But for the moment, I'm really not supposed to write checks, you know, that are going over the budget.
Right, right. Okay, so we'll just figure out with Andrew, you know, what the appropriate thing is
Right.
for the.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think it's around the number 3,000, but yeah, we can.
Yeah, okay, but I mean, otherwise they look good, so.
Okay.
all right, we'll move on now to closing comments. First, members of the public, any members of the public want to comment? Yes, Jay Reichgott.
Jay Reichgott, 121 Laurel Road. Just one comment to this question of pollinators, and it's great that we're not using neonicotines, whatever. If you want to protect the butterflies and the bees and all the good insects, stop spraying your lawn for mosquitoes and ticks and whatever. there's no insecticide that can hit which bugs it kills. And even the organic ones are not good. If you're worried about mosquitoes, buy a bottle of DEET and smear it on yourself. Stop spraying stuff on you.
Thank you. Ms. Newhouser.
Thank you. Two quick things. If you all are working so diligently, and thank you for everybody's work on the fence issue, I would hope that you would consider another proper deer culling program in the future, because that made a huge difference. And sadly, it got dropped. And, Sally Sani's efforts, although heroic, only cull about 5 deer if we're lucky each fall, and that's not enough, and we know that. And the police department did a fantastic job back in the day. And so I would just consider that, number one. And number two, there was a fireworks display that was rather huge within this year. At some point this winter, that was rather large. I think it went on for about a half hour. I don't know if it was a club event or whatever, but if we are to have unexpected fireworks displays, if we could have a heads up, because people have animals that are truly frightened by this. I have a dog who's a gun dog, but for some reason she can't deal with fireworks. So if we could have a little heads up as to a fireworks display one evening, I would be very much appreciative. And that's it. But thank you all.
Yeah, Ms. Newhouser, I have to take responsibility for that. The board agreed that I would provide a heads up within 24 hours of the fireworks display. It was a private display at the club. We agreed on that sometime in early February. The event took place, I think, in early March, and it just slipped my mind. And so I apologize for that. It won't happen again.
Okay, thank
Okay?
you.
It won't but it was on me. The board did agree to provide notice.
Great.
So
Thanks.
anybody else wish to speak publicly? Anybody in the room? No? Okay, trustees, any final comments? Deputy Mayor?
No.
Trustee Shaw?
Mr. Mayor.
Oh,
Sorry, you didn't see my hand. Again, John Sarcone, counsel to.
yep.
Look, if you're going to spend a lot of time redoing the law, which I don't believe you need to do, why don't you just pass a resolution tonight, readopting the law, current law, without the sunset clause, and then you have plenty of time to figure out if you want to do other setbacks, or you want to do heights and all those things. Because now you're going to have months go by, and maybe you'll have 30 people coming in with their perimeter fence applications. And it's going to turn this place into something that the founders never wanted, and I don't think any of you want. Also, I wanted to say that you mentioned that I see Jared's up there. It's a nice picture of you, Jared. That council for the planning board and the village board had both come back with analysis and opinion on the law. I think those should be made public. It's not private, privileged information. That is information that tells this board, is telling this board that that sunset clause exists and that the law doesn't exist. And I think it's wrong, and it's probably flawed. I can tell you this. The key, can I finish this, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
The key to my client's argument, okay, and this was in the letter I had sent today, but I want the public to hear it as well. Because if you believe that the sunset clause doesn't exist, then the whole entire chapter 49 doesn't exist. You can't have one without the other because of the way it was worded. So I'll just read it. Key to my client's argument is this. 1, the sunset language was carried over from 01 to 07, amended and readopted, chapter 49. And 2, there have been no subsequent material changes to the latter since 07. Follows that unless it was, as we believe, an oversight or inadvertence that the sunset language was left in the 2007 version of section 49-1, the trustees' intent, the legal effect of 07's enactment had to be to repeal chapter 49 in its entirety. Now that's, everybody agrees, that's not the case. Nobody's going off of that assumption. So I challenge Jared and the whole council to whom to re-examine this and look at it in that big picture. It's not possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any comments from the trustees? Anybody have anything to say? Josh, anything? Okay. All right. At this point, I'm going to make a motion that we move into executive session. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second from trustee Brooke. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Folks, we're going to clear the room. Thank you. Thank you all for
I'm
coming.
sorry. Mayor, did you want to say, because usually you say why we're going into
Oh,
executive
yeah,
session? I
we're
don't know
going
if you
into
want to add to
executive
the motion.
session to discuss individual complaints regarding sewer charges on their properties. We are going to have presentations made by those individuals, and those presentations should be done in executive session.
Okay,
That's why. Okay? Individual
okay,
residents.
thank you.
All right.
Give me a moment.
And you're all welcome to come back after the executive session. There are snacks. Didn't you have any cookies?
Oh, I didn't see this.
Did I hear someone say cookies?
Yeah, that's the price you pay for doing this remotely. You have to show up.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Sheila, close the door. Sheila, just close the door. Okay. Recording is, who do we have left on? Trustee, and the attorney. Great.
Let me just stop the recording.
The record should reflect the time is 10:22. The Board of Trustees has returned from executive session. I move that we adjourn for the day. Is there a second? All those in favor?
I'm sorry, who
Aye.
seconded that? Sorry, who seconded? Who
Second
seconded?
by the deputy mayor.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night.